Will AI take over your job, your world, your purpose, and potentially will it destroy everything? Let's talk about it in this fantastic episode on AI. All right, welcome back, you guys. Clearly, AI has been everyone's topic because it's become more smarter than much. Let's get into the topic of AI and will it take over things and will the world crumble and go to die? So listen, the potential of some things going wrong has always been there. I had this fun conversation with a client of mine recently, and and he said, "Hey, I've been working on these things with AI, and I'm a little uncomfortable with it because as the stuff gets better, it almost feels like I am kind of I'm creating stuff that will make people lose their job, or I'm creating stuff that will kind of make us all obsolete, right? And so there's a little bit of an anxiety behind the use, not only the use, but the creation and the advancement of artificial intelligence. And not everybody's very comfortable with it, even and especially actually the people who are working with it, right? And so that's pretty normal. It's this thing that is kind of in the room of saying, well, are we kind of creating our own doom? And that's a fair thing to say. And how we will have to change and how our society will have to change to accommodate all the fun things that happen when we have a smarter tool at our disposal, right? Now the fun thing about this is, we notice that there's one thing that this conversation has in common with all other events about the future, as well as all other events about the past, right? They are all in our mind. Yeah. So in the present moment, the doom and gloom of the future AI revolution doesn't quite exist, right? It exists in the projection of what will happen in the future. And while that can be a very fair mathematical model to follow, and while it's very important to look at projections and to kind of a little bit try to understand where we're going to land, it's also important to notice where the emotion comes from, right? So many of us would actually engage in scenarios where the world basically goes to shit in the future, and we will feel anxious about it. And it's not that the world is going to shit and that's why we feel anxious. It is that we are thinking about the future in which the world is going to shit, which is why we feel anxious. And the fun thing is, from what I've seen so far, because there's always the potential of the world going to shit, right? I think there was once this movie of, what is it, 2012? Yeah, 2012, exactly, yeah. Also the millennium, I think 2000 was another year where lots of people were very convinced that everything is going to go extinct. And then there was also the asteroid thing that was supposed to hit Earth 2029. And so the chance of everything going to shit is kind of there all the time, right? It was never really different. It was there before, it was there even 2000 years ago, it's there now. There's not that much difference. The future is always unpredictable to some extent and can very much screw us over. Yes, right. So that's why the present moment is so precious and important. And so we notice, okay, like there is some worry about the future, and cool, and that can feel a certain way, right? And while it may be important to be aware of the dangers of what we are engaging with, it is even more important to actually use your mind in the right way, right? So worry, for example, is actually the way how to use your mind that's unhelpful, right? So I don't know if you've noticed this, but worry is supposed to protect you or someone else, but in 99.9% of the times, it doesn't actually protect you, right? It's literally just like you're using it and there's nothing wrong, and you just feel horrible. And so I often like to switch out worry with imagination, right? And so I like to dream up and to create a better scenario, and not the one out of nothing out of, not like a scenario out of absolutely nowhere where I say, oh, I just made this up as zero base in reality. No, where I can say, fair enough, let's create a scenario in our mind, or let's look into one deeper that is also likely to occur, but that doesn't make us feel terrible, right? Something that actually is worth going for, right? And so, for example, I would engage in a scenario where artificial intelligence has not gone rogue on us, but it has gone soft on us, right? It solved all the problems, right? It helped us with climate change, which would have killed us, but it didn't, because AI was smart enough to figure out some solutions and overcome all the shit we've done. And so I imagine that point where I say, well, yeah, true, maybe there will be a super intelligent race of robots and whatever, but they were not going to kill us. Instead, the opposite. If they're actually so much more intelligent, even on a whatever level, normally, from what I've seen, the more intelligent slash evolved intelligences tend to be more benevolent, actually, rather than destructive. And so I would say, cool, let me just imagine a future where it's the opposite, where actually things are going well. Yeah. And how could that look like, right? I mean, one example how that could, for example, look like is that all of us would be employed by, well, nobody, right? That we would simply be paid. We would be paid by a basic income, right? So all of us would have kind of our needs met, and there would be some sort of barter economy, and most of us would basically play games and eat food and have parties and do cool stuff and just have fun. And I remember actually a time when that was the case, when we didn't need work in order to feel fulfilled. And you probably remember that time as well. It was the time when you were a kid. That's right. You experienced that the first years of your life. And you tell me, time as a kid, is that the time where you were, you know, you were feeling like really good, or not so much? Right? And so sometimes if you go through teenage years, okay, not so great, but still, it wasn't that bad, right? It wasn't that bad. There's so many good things from childhood that we can look into. We can say, food was there, made for us often. We didn't really have that much to worry about, apart from our own kind of, evolution or our own experiences of things. And yes, true, there was some level of freedom that was restricted, but somehow, in one way or another, we were able to regain that freedom, or to explore that freedom more and more. Was that bad? I don't know. You gotta answer that for yourself. But if I were to engage in a future scenario, in a potential, thought process of what the future may look like, I would love to, let me just imagine a good one. Because, and not because this one is more realistic than the other one. No, they're kind of both equally realistic and possible, because it's the future and none of us can actually predict it. But this one actually gives me, well, excitement about the future, right? I feel good today because I imagined this now. And some would say, oh, that means we're fooling ourselves, right? We're fooling ourselves. We're not looking at the dangers that are possible. But that's not quite true, because we can be aware of the dangers without actually thinking about the dangers every single day. We can look at the potential dangers and choose safeguards to actually create something for that. But then we can actually tune into a better version of that future on a daily basis so that we feel better. And so you will notice very quickly that you don't actually experience the future. You experience, again, yes, you get the theme sooner or later, you experience the story of what you're having in your mind of what potentially the future might look like. And if the future or the past looks very doom and gloom for you, and it always will, then you still have one way out. You can return back to the present moment. Yes, because in the present moment, none of that exists. And there's something that brings you always back to the present moment. It's your breath. Exactly right. And that breath, yes, if you breathe a little deeper than usual, You'll be back in the present moment like nobody's business. And whatever happens in the future, we'll handle it when it's happening. Whatever's happening right now, we'll handle it when it's happening. Yes. And so take care of your mental health, right? When it's actually happening, right now. Notice the story you're telling yourself about the future or the past and see that it's actually helpful. Because if it's not, it will most likely not only screw up your day, but potentially also make you very afraid. And I haven't really met any team, any business owner, or any person who, on a regular basis, if they're afraid, create anything good. And so, yeah, I'd love for you to tune into something more inspiring, something more helpful. And if you can do that, let me know in the chat. And I'm looking forward to hear from you soon. Bye.